Hi, my name is Reverend Theresa Soto. I'm the lead minister here at the First Unitarian Church of Oakland. I'd like to welcome you today. For prelude music, I'd like to share with you some Inuit songs. Inuit people are indigenous to the northern parts of continents, Alaska, Canada, Denmark, Greenland. One Inuit person is called Inuk. In these songs, Shinanova does throat singing, and her mother sings along. You'll find that one of the songs ends abruptly. That's just how it's recorded. I invite you to take the spirit of the music and singing into the service with you this morning. Welcome.
Be throat singing for those who are healing and for those who are suffering, and I really hope this helps.
This land is native land. This land is native land. From the Iroquois to Coast Salish Islands, from the Tule River tribe to the Navajo. This land was stolen from my people. This land is stolen land.
Good morning. My name is Janet McFarland, and on behalf of Pastor Theresa Soto, worship producer Vincent Rains, my colleagues on the Journey Toward Wholeness transformation team, guest speaker Kia Bordner, and others on the worship team, welcome to worship service with the First Unitarian Church of Oakland. We ask that you please turn off your video while we light our chalice and candles. This will allow people to better see the words on the screen and to follow along. Please note that we are recording this service, so if you don't want to be in the recording, please keep your camera turned off. For best viewing experience, we recommend that you make certain that you have the most up-to-date version of the Zoom app on your computer. Now, before we begin our service, we have a few reminders. Today, after worship service, everyone is invited to join the Journey Toward Wholeness anti-racism transformation team to discuss dynamics of racial equity, identity, and practices to overcome barriers and oppression created by racism. Our guest facilitators will lead an exploration into what justice means to Indigenous people and to us as settlers on unceded Ohlone land. Also on Thursday evening, Spirit Circle is a small group exploration of spiritual and ethical life, including the worship and learning theme of the month. Join Pastor Theresa to talk about these things and to support one another. To sign up, please send an email to connect@uuoakland.org. And third, we are invited to join the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbus as they ordain Elizabeth Call. Elizabeth was a member of the First Unitarian Church of Oakland from 2015 to 2018. You may remember her as a worship associate or an instigator on the adult faith development team. She is now the Assistant Minister of Pastoral Care at the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbus. And please visit the online calendar for details about all of these events. For Zoom links to join church events, email yesplease@uuoakland.org.
Good morning. I'm Donna Fujioka from the Journey Toward Wholeness Transformation Team. We are an intentionally multi-generational, multiracial, multicultural, inclusive, and anti-oppressive religious community, and you are welcome here. We invite you to fill out the guest connection card you will see in the chat. We want to be able to support your exploration of what's available in our community that interests you and how you might participate. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Noemi de Guzman. We light the chalice this month of May in honor and acknowledgement of Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month, with the words of Chinese American novelist Amy Tan, who was born here in Oakland. I will share her words, and I invite you to listen or read along while keeping your microphone muted. Amy Tan experiences hope this way. I believe truth lies not in logic, but in hope, both past and future. I believe hope can surprise you. It can survive the odds against it, all sorts of contradictions, and certainly any skeptic's rationale for relying on proof through fact. We light this chalice in the spirit of that truth and hope as we build the beloved community characterized by multiracial, multicultural, and multi-generational relationships. Let us make it so. Next, we light this candle in support of the Black Lives Matter movement, recognizing the systemic racism that tries to deny the full humanity of Black people. We commit to dismantling it with daily action. On Tuesday this week, our neighbor city, Alameda, released body cam footage of police stopping 26-year-old Mario Gonzalez of Oakland. Mario died after they pinned him to the ground for at least 5 minutes. We light our peace candle to hold the grief of police violence against Black and Brown people, anti-Asian violence, gun violence in schools, and more.
Never forget that the sacred space your congregation occupies was first the sacred home of the Ohlone people. In their honor and to remind yourselves that this is still their home, I charge the First Unitarian Church of Oakland to light a sacred flame as the stewards of this sacred and holy place. Deborah Miranda is the author of Bad Indians, a tribal memoir, and winner of the Penn Oakland Joseph Miles Literary Award. Miranda is an enrolled member of the Ohlone Costonian Esselen Nation of California. Her poem titled Palimpsest, which is the definition, a manuscript or piece of writing material on which the original writing has been effaced to make room for later writing, but of which traces remain. This poem will be read this morning by Dennis.
Palimpsest. How does obsidian forget the hiss of magma? How does water forget the cloud of its birth? Can wild iris forget the dark belly of the bulb? Does scar forget the torn, raw edge of flesh? Hands that reached inside chaos brought me out into the world. Mouth that breathed into mine a language wild enough to wake me. When does fire forget lightning? Should canyon forget river? Might skin renounce fingerprint? Will honey deny the bee? Don't ask me to forget. Don't tell me this is over. Beneath sand and broken mountains, even the Mojave remembers the salt of a fickle sea. And now, here's Stefan singing, We're Gonna Keep On Moving Forward.
We're gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. We're gonna keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Never turning back. Never turning back. We're gonna keep on singing loudly. Keep on singing loudly. Keep on singing loudly. Never turning back. Never turning back. We're gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back.
Thank you, Stefan. Indeed, we are going to keep on moving forward, connected to each other, connected to the earth, and connected to the people whose homeland this is. In this moment for environmental justice, I invite you to take a breath. Notice the air flowing into your lungs and flowing out again. When we are physically together again in that beautiful sanctuary, we will hear each other breathing. The air that you exhale is the air that I breathe in. We're connected like that. We're connected to the Ohlone people, past and present, who live in and love the places we love. The Alameda shoreline, the mud flats near Golden Gate Fields, Saucil Creek, the redwoods, the ridge line of the hills, and the misty, shadowy views of Mount Tamalpais in the bay from the top of the East Bay Hills in the morning. We are connected to the land and the people and each other, and this connection has power. You think for ourselves, and we tend to head off in our separate ways, using our individual powers to do good things in the world. But for the next 6 weeks, the environmental justice advocates invite you to consider joining your efforts for the environment with UUs across the continent in the Drawdown Eco Challenge. We ask you to sign up. The link is in the chat, and it will also be in the Chalice chatter. Sign up and join Team Foucault and post your comments and experiences as you go for other members to see, to communicate. It's not about how much time you spend on it. It's about doing it together. The week of May 17th, we will host opportunities to come together, to connect on Zoom and share what you've learned, what you've noticed. In the chat is a link to sign up for a small group meeting or just randomly to express your interest. The link will also be in Chalice Chatter, our weekly newsletter. Small steps together. One of these steps is listed in the chat: to contact the state teachers retirement system and ask them to stop investing teacher pension funds in building yet another oil pipeline across native lands. Small steps together. Join us.
Now I invite everyone to please unmute your microphones and welcome each other to virtual church today.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Morning.
Hi, Noe.
Good morning.
Hi, hello.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning and welcome.
Hello.
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 Hi, Carla.
Phyllis is
Good
cooking.
morning. Good
Hi, Helen. Hi,
morning.
MJ.
Good to
Hi,
see
Steve.
Hi.
Hi,
Judith.
Hi, Marcy.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, Emily. Hi, Greg.
Hello.
Hi, Dennis.
I'm actually here. Hi.
Hello.
I hear Bill. Hi,
Hey,
Bill.
Bill.
Hi, Jody.
Hi, Jody. Hi, Janet.
Hello.
Good morning,
Kevin, good to see
Marcy.
you,
Hi,
Kevin.
Dick.
Hi,
Hello,
Dan.
hello.
Hey, Evelyn. Hi, Kathy.
Hi,
Okay.
Bill.
Morning,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Hi, Cora. Hope you're doing
Good
okay.
morning, Ruth.
Nice haircut, Ron.
Good morning, Reverend
Okay.
Theresa and everyone.
That's enough of that.
Everyone, please return to mute so that we can hear a wisdom story from Kia.
The Man and the Ravens, an Anishinaabe legend, adapted from Charles P. White Dog, Ojibwe. Once, long ago, and not so long ago, there was a man who felt great joy watching the black ravens. He loved to watch them fly around, to play, to listen to them squawk and chatter. He enjoyed them so much, he would climb high into the trees just to be closer to them. For many moons, the ravens acted as if they were ignoring the man, but they were watching him closely. After a while, one of the ravens left the tree where the ravens were gathered. He landed directly next to the man, high up in a nearby tree. "You have been watching us for a long time," spoke the raven. "You have tried to get close to us. Why do you do this?" The man replied, I mean no harm. I have become enchanted with you and all your relatives. I enjoy your play, your beautiful squawking, and I wish I could learn your language so I could understand more about you." "We are honored that you want to know us," the raven responded. "As long as you do not cause harm, we will teach you our language." So for many moons, the ravens taught the man their ways, how they lived from day to day, and all about their language. Many of the ravens saw the man among them, learning from them, and they accepted him as a friend. Then, as men often do, the man thought he had become so educated in the raven's ways that he knew everything there was to know about the ravens. One day, an older raven flying far overhead dropped a walnut perfectly on the man's head. Boink! It was done on purpose, and all the ravens almost fell off of their branches, laughing so hard in that way that they do. One raven who was flying nearby laughed so hard he crash landed right in front of the man. Plop. The man felt bad and hurt by being made fun of. So he asked the raven on the ground in front of him, "Why are you all picking on me?" The raven stopped laughing and became very serious. "We thought you understood us, but apparently you don't. If you did, you would know that we are not mocking you. Well, maybe a little bit. But it is done in our way of having fun. We are playing with you, and that is all. It is not to be taken seriously. You should know us better." The man sat and took some time to understand this. Over time, a few more practical jokes were played on him, and he in turn pulled a few good ones on the ravens. A good time was had by all, and the man became even closer to the ravens. Some time passed, and then one day, a young raven swooped out of the sky and pecked the man on the head. Hard, poke, and then another young raven swooped down, poke, and another, and they did the same. The man ran across the field and into the woods to hide, but the ravens kept chasing him. Very skillfully, they flew at high speeds through the woods, poke, 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 following the man. Finally, the two stopped and started to yell mean words, fighting words at the man. Again, the man did not understand, but he knew the two ravens were very mad at him, so he decided to leave and let the ravens be. The man went away for many moons, back to his own Anishinaabe village. As he did his duties in his village, he told all his people of his adventures and what he had learned about the ravens. Some listened with intent. Others just thought the man was a fool to study the ravens so. The villagers gave the man a new name, Black Feather, because of his close relationship to the ravens. But the man objected and said, "No, I am no longer close to the raven people." From above, there was a squawking sound of a single raven. Some of the people looked up and were surprised that they could understand the raven. Others just looked around and shrugged because they could hear nothing but squawking. The raven was speaking to the man. "But it is true that you are closer to us than any Anishinaabe," which means human, "has ever come. You are close, but you still don't understand us fully. I invite you to return to us. Many miss you." Black Feather started to follow the raven, but then stopped at the edge of the village. He looked around to make sure no other Anishinaabe could hear. Then he asked the raven, "Why do you ask me back to leave my people when the two ravens were fighting with me and were mean?" The raven landed at Blackfeather's feet. He shook his head. "See how little you understand? The two young ravens did not fight with you because you are Anishinaabe. It is because they accepted you as a member of the raven people. You should know that we fight among ourselves too. It is part of our way of life. Instead of sulking and leaving, you should have fought back." Black Feather stood in silence for a while. "There is much about ravens I don't understand. Maybe we are too different people to ever understand each other. I should stop and return to my people in the village." The raven again shook his head and told Blackfeather, "That is your choice. But again, I tell you that you have come closer to us raven people than any other Anishinaabe. Would you throw that all away just because you can't understand us fully yet?" Blackfeather responded, "It's useless. How can I ever understand you? I can't even fly." 1,000 bursts of laughter were heard from all the surrounding trees, and Blackfeather knew that all the raven people were there, hiding and listening. "Of course you can't fly. You are Anishinaabe, and we are ravens. But we accept you as one of us. We play with you, we fight with you, we love you, and we want you back. We also recommend you don't try to fly in order to be like us, because then you would not be Anishinaabe, nor a raven, but something else. We like you as an Anishinaabe that understands us, ravens. Join us or not, the decision is yours." After some thought on this, Blackfeather returned to the Anishinaabe village. and bid everyone a fond farewell, because he had decided to live with the Raven people. After all the farewells and such, he started to leave the village. All the Anishinaabe people were there to see him off, and high overhead were 1,000 ravens. Just then, from high above, one of the elder ravens dropped a walnut shell. Boink! Again, with remarkable aim right on Blackfeather's head. All the ravens started laughing hard, and all the Anishinaabe were laughing too. Blackfeather looked up at the old raven and laughed. Good one.
Thank you so much. That was really wonderful. I'd like to invite you now to join me in prayer. It'll be just a few moments. So arrive in this room, take a smooth, easy breath. If praying's not your thing, think of all the people, places, and important missions that you're connected to. Spirit of life, we seek the life of connection in community. Let us be agents of mercy and makers of peace. To feed the hungry, shelter the homeless, touch the sick, console the sorrowing, visit the prisoners, and welcome the stranger. Let us allow the clarity of our mission to guide us. Keep us from despair when we see that the journey is long and the way of peace circuitous. Let us unfailingly comfort one another, and especially those living in the shadow of grief. Spirit of life and love, moving now in every lively living thing in and through us, all among, like the wind, astonish us this morning, startle us and stun us, shake us from our sleeping, for we are winter weary, sluggish, and forgetting to believe. And we are ready, we are more than ready to sing and shout, praise and joy to every green and living thing, to every heart that beats, and the life that rises in each and all of us. For all these things, we give thanks and say amen. Right now, I want to offer you some introductions. So first, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about Kia this morning. Kia Bordner is the granddaughter of Juan Crisostomo Renteria of the Tigua people of Isleta del Sur, Maria Theresa Baca, whose nation has been lost to colonization, the Monteverdis of the Yaqui people, and the Mayers of Germany. She's the mother of 4 adult children, Elizabeth, Sarah, Julia, and Rile. She's currently the SALT, Spiritual Activists Leading Together Program Interim Coordinator with the UU Justice Ministry of California. Kia is a founding member of the Circle of Hedge, an emerging faith-based community. As a co-president of the Council of Ministers of Color and the chapter of the UU Ministers Association, she shares liaison duties with me, and currently is a member of the Pacific Southwest District Board. Kia has served previously as a General Assembly co-coordinator for the DRUM, Diverse Revolutionary UU Multicultural Ministries. At First UU of San Diego, Kia is the chair of the nominating committee, one of the leads of the Family Advisory Board, and an anchor of the Journey Toward Wholeness core team, member of the 8th Principal Discernment team, and a youth advisor. Kia's pronouns are she, her, hers, and they, them, theirs. We also welcome in the service Reverend Ruth Reinhardt. Reverend Ruth will be leading the Dominant Culture Caucus for First Sunday this afternoon. Reverend Ruth is a community minister affiliated with Jefferson Unitarian Church in Golden, Colorado. She's a graduate of Iliff School of Theology in Denver, And Reverend Ruth's ministry is characterized by the ideas that healing and transformation are always possible, and that we find that together. So welcome to our special guest today. I'm really grateful that you're here with us. So I'd like to invite a song from Rile Grant, Kia's son.
In this sacred time and space, we share stories from many traditions, from many people. Because stories are medicine, we need to be responsible with how we use them. Stories share truths, honor ancestors, and shape the future. They are magic, transforming both the teller and the listener. They are created to answer questions and should in themselves create new questions. Once a story is birthed, it exists in the universe forever. Once a story is received, it should inform our choices and our lives. Once a story is felt, the kernel of it stays with us. Muscogee Creek Nation member Joy Harjo, the first Native American United States Poet Laureate, writes, "It is memory that provides the heart with impetus, fuels the brain, and propels the corn plant from seed to fruit." To quote Cherokee, German, and Greek author and Native American academic Thomas King, "The truth about stories is that that's all we are." The stories we offer to help us create medicine to heal the world. Take these stories in the form of medicine in and for your hearts. They are yours now. As Thomas King also wrote, "Do with them what you will. Tell them to friends. Forget about them. But don't say in the years to come that you would have lived your life differently if only you had heard this story. You've heard it now." One story we just heard this morning through L'Ecclesio, sung by my son, Rile Grant, is a story of perseverance. After I learned about Joseph Shabalala's his words, "Be still my heart, even here I am at home," this sounded like a song about calming his broken heart in the resignation of the possibility of never returning to his homeland, about accepting that. "Be still my heart, even here I am at home," is a song, a story about acceptance and perseverance. Remember by Joy Harjo. Remember the sky that you were born under. Know each of the stars' stories. Remember the moon. Know who she is. Remember the sun's birth at dawn. That is the strongest point of time. Remember sundown and the giving away tonight. Remember your birth, how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life and her mother's and hers. Remember your father. He is your life also. Remember the earth whose skin you are. Red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth. We are earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life, who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them. Listen to them. They are alive poems. Remember the wind? Remember her voice? She knows the origins of this universe. Remember, you are all people, and all people are you. Remember, you are this universe, and this universe is you. Remember, all is in motion, is growing, is you. Remember, language comes from this. Remember the dance languages that life is. Remember. Nakute nakute takaman, or long, long ago, therefore it is so. Remember the sky you were born under, know each of the stars' stories. The children of a family, the siblings, the cousins, the youngest generation were playing together. The mothers, the aunts, and the grandmother were sitting nearby, working on various household chores. They talked and laughed as they worked. One of the children came close and grandmother, what does that word you just said mean? Hush, it's gibberish. Habla español. Grandmother waved off the curious child, who shrugged and ran back to play. The women had been speaking to each other in the language of their mothers and grandmothers. But this grandmother made the heartbreaking decision to keep this language from her grandchildren. Grandmother insisted to her grandchildren, "Nosotras somos mexicanas, no indias." How does obsidian forget the hiss of magma? Nakute nakute takaman. Maybe about 10 more years ago, not quite as long ago. Remember the moon, know who she is. On another continent, another matriarch made a similar decision. Her husband, 2 daughters, and herself were leaving their homeland, boarding a ship and traveling across an ocean. When they arrived in this new place, they no longer practiced the faith of their family and their ancestors. They adopted a safer religious identity, one that would not be persecuted. And after all, this new religion did have its roots in their faith. How does water forget the cloud of its birth? Nakute nakute takaman, maybe after another 50 years, so not as long ago. Remember the sun's birth at dawn? That is the strongest point of time. One of the grandmother's grandchildren was now herself a grandmother, who told the story to her grandchildren of how her grandmother made them speak Spanish and not the language the adults spoke. Can wild iris forget the dark belly of the bulb? Nakute nakute takaman. Maybe after 20 more years, not so long ago. Remember sundown and the giving away tonight? The great-granddaughter of the mother who sailed across an ocean to survive the Holocaust and hid her true faith. That granddaughter heard the first part of the story, and I knew in my heart the second part. Does scar forget the torn raw edge of flesh? Nakute nakute takaman. Maybe after another 20 years, really not as long ago. Remember your birth, how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life and her mother's and hers. My grandmother, who had been taught to speak Spanish, became an ancestor. And this grandchild learned that great-great-grandmother had left the homeland of her people, had moved her family to a town where they weren't known, where they could be Mexican, not Indian, where her grandchildren would be safe from residential schools. Hands that reached into chaos brought me into the world, mouth that breathed into mine, a language wild enough to wake me. Nakute nakute takaman. Or maybe it's now, or maybe sometime in the future. Who can tell? Time is not linear. Remember the earth whose skin you are. Remember the plants, trees, animal life. Remember the wind. Remember her voice. The granddaughter of those women whose stories, whose choices allowed for her to be born, tells their stories and her own stories. Remember, you are all people and all people are you. Remember, you are this universe and this universe is you. Remember, all is in motion, is growing, is you. I honor them with my work to help birth a new world into being, a world where no grandmothers need to choose between their homelands, their mother tongue, their ancestors' faiths, to ensure that their grandchildren even have a chance to be born. When does fire forget lightning? Should canyon forget river? Might skin renounce fingerprint? Will honey deny the bee? A New Language by Cassandra Lopez, Kahia Tongva Lusueño. My words are always collapsing upon themselves, too tight. In my mouth, I want a new language, one with at least 50 words for grief and 50 words for love, so I can offer them to the living who mourn the dead. I want a language that understands sister pain and heart hurt. So when I tell you brother is my hook of heart, you will see the needle threading me to the others numbered, men, women, and children of our grit spit city. I want a language to tell you about 2010's 35th homicide, the unsolved, a man that my city turned to number, sparking me back to longer days when ocean is the mouth of summer. Our shell fingers drive into sand searching. We find tiny silver sand crabs. We scoop and scoop till we bore and go in search of tangy seaweed. We are salted sun, how we brown to earth, our warm flesh flowering. In this new language, our bones say sun and sea, reminding us of an old language our mouths have forgotten, but our marrow remembers. Remember, language comes from this. Remember the dance language is, that life is. Remember. Don't ask me to forget. Don't tell me this is over. Beneath sand and broken mountains, even the Mojave remembers salt of a fickle sea. Take these stories. They are yours. And as my grandfather's people, the Tigua of Isleta del Sur say, Cacuexi, now you have a tale.
Thank you so much, Kia, for that beautiful word. Let's take a moment, breathe it in, I have some encouragement for you. Japanese novelist Haruki Murakami suggests that curiosity can bring guts out of hiding at times, maybe even get them going. But curiosity usually evaporates. Guts have to go for the long haul. Curiosity is like a fun friend you can't really trust. It turns you on and then leaves you to make it your own with whatever guts you can muster. And this might relate to our experience of pandemic, where it appeared to be first a temporary closure that stretched out before us an entire year. And it is the length of the challenge that I want to talk to you about today. Rile Grant, writing for the New York Times, talks about an experience in the scene of pandemic, which is not burnout. People have energy. It's not depression. People don't feel hopeless, but they feel aimless and joyless. Languishing is a sense of stagnation and emptiness. It feels as if you're muddling through your days, looking at your life through a foggy windshield. And it might be the dominant emotion of 2021. As scientists and physicians work to treat and cure the physical symptoms of long-haul COVID, many people are struggling with the emotional long haul of the pandemic. It hit some of us unprepared as the intense fear and grief of last year faded. Why does an ongoing feeling of stagnation matter so much? New evidence from pandemic healthcare workers in Italy shows that those who were languishing in the spring of 2020 were 3 times more likely than their peers to be diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Being stuck in an emotional holding pattern has a cost to our ability to bounce back. What does this mean for our community? Spiritually, ethically? We can consider a 2-part response. First, it's important to acknowledge that the best way to deal with complicated feelings is to tell the truth about them. Instead of fine, instead of wry jokes. One acceptable response to how are you is, well, to be honest, I'm languishing. The other support for languishing is small goals. What are your small goals? Heather offered us some small movements that we can do as a team to make an impact on environmental justice. Maybe those. Will you attend your covenant group? Will you participate in First Sunday? These are small goals and practices of connection. This is what we say is the core recognizable practice of Unitarian Universalism. In her poem, To a New Dawning, white actor and writer Amber Tamblyn puts it this way. We grieve for every building, from Section 8 to the unfinished skyscraper's crane, buildings bustling with bodies or abandoned by them, bodies that dance, bodies that sleep, bodies that virtual meet, eat, and drink, bodies that cease. We grieve the gravity of having to die alone in a city built on never having to be. And though our bridges are orphaned arches left to hold up the sky's condolences, they still do connect us. They still do connect us. Connect us to the cabin fever daughters watching over the high fevered grandfathers. Connect us to the warrior first responders, nurses, and exhausted doctors. The recovering sick, finally taking off ventilators. Connect us to the maskless, the homeless, the hopeless, the jobless, our locals, bars, bodegas, bathhouses, our silent streets empty as ancient desert streams, holding only the echoes of ambulance screams. Connect us to the cherry blossoms standing guard at full blush, while cops bloom ribbons of yellow tape at their gates. us connected by airborne whispers, us connected by the jade dream of lawless traffic hours, kissing the ears of each other's rear views. One of the stories we lean into today is telling the truth about colonization and its impact on Indigenous people of the very land we occupy. Identifying and healing connection is one of our jobs in community, whether it be connection to ourselves, connection to others and their experiences, connection to the land. Thus, when Indigenous rights activist Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz wonders, how then can US society come to terms with the past? How can it acknowledge responsibility? We come to faithful answers when we come to right relationship and right practices. Dunbar Ortiz continues, the late Native historian Jack Forbes always stressed that while living persons are not responsible for what their ancestors did, they are responsible for the society they live in, which is a product of that past. Assuming this responsibility provides a means of survival and liberation. One more time. Living persons are not responsible for what their ancestors did, but they are responsible for the society they live in, which is a product of that past. Assuming this responsibility provides a means of survival and liberation. Dunbar Ortiz continues, everyone and everything in the world is affected, for the most part, negatively by US dominance and intervention, often violently through direct military means or through proxies. So, you may be languishing. You may be reckoning with the weight of the past characterized by exploitation. More is possible. Healing is possible. And here's what I want you to lean into and consider. It's not about self-care. It's about collective care. Collective care means shifting our organizations to be ones where people feel fine if they get sick, cry, have needs, start late because the bus broke down, move slower. Ones where there's food at meetings, people work from home, and these aren't things we apologize for. It is the way we do the work which centers disabled femme of color ways of being in the world, where many of us have often worked from our sick beds, our kid beds, or our too crazy to go out today beds, when we actually care for each other and don't leave each other behind, which is where we started, right? In her book, Care Work, Dreaming Disability Justice, South Asian poet, justice writer, and activist, Leah Lakshmi Pipesna Semaran Sinha offers further insight to shape our practices. Collective care means shifting our organization to be one in which the wholeness of your experience matters. The entirety of your body matters. Your family matters. And who can and can't get vaccinated matters. It matters a lot. Your small goals matter, and your connections matter. Many of you probably remember that one of the things we've discussed and practiced at length so far in my ministry is that multiple things are always occurring in the same moment. Lately, a critique is making the rounds. It's a critique of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, stating that Maslow misappropriated Blackfoot Indian ideas. Listen, we're not going to throw Maslow out with the bathwater, but mentioning it, considering it, is part of being accountable for the created present. Where Maslow's hierarchy peaks with self-actualization, the Blackfoot framework begins with the idea that we are each born into the world as a spark of divinity with great purpose embedded in us. That means we arrive on earth self-actualized. You can hear that that's a rich idea, worthy of our conversation and application. But to be perfectly clear, what we're saying is that at no time is the work of transforming your own life less important than the larger vision that we share and commit to. Both are happening at the same time. If you are languishing or otherwise struggling, it matters for you to direct your attention to that internal healing that's part of the big picture. Listen to this advice from United States Poet Laureate and Muskogee Nation member Joy Harjo in her poem, For Calling the Spirit Back from Wandering the Earth in Its Human Feet. Cut the ties you have to failure and shame. Let go of the pain you are holding in your mind, your shoulders, your heart, all the way to your feet. Let go of the pain of your ancestors to make way for those who are headed in our direction. Ask for forgiveness. Call upon the help of those who love you. These helpers take many forms: animal, element, bird, angel, saint, stone, or ancestor. Call yourself back. You will find yourself caught in corners and creases of shame, judgment, and human abuse. You must call in a way that your spirit will want to return. Speak to it as you would to a beloved child. Welcome your spirit back from its wandering. It will return in pieces and tatters. Gather them together. They will be happy to be found after being lost for so long. Your spirit will need to sleep a while after it is bathed and given clean clothes. Now you can have a party. Invite everyone you know who loves and supports you. Keep room for those who have no place to go. Make a giveaway. And remember, keep the speeches short. Then you must do this. Help the next person find their way through the dark. May it be so. Let us see to it. I now invite Dan to lead us in a practice of generosity.
To express the depth of my gratitude for this church community, I would have to tell some stories. They're stories of discovering a place that affirms my right to my own beliefs, of personal transformation, especially through my experiences in the Journey Toward Wholeness transformation team, of walking with friends and having them walk with me through the most difficult of times. I'm also grateful and determined to be part of a community dedicated to creating a just, multicultural, anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multi-generational community. My gratitude and devotion to that mission, my sense of responsibility to do my part for the continuance of this beloved community prompted me to run for the Board of Trustees a couple of years ago. And that same sense of gratitude and responsibility motivates my generosity when I'm asked to share responsibility for the financial support of this community. I hope that you are also inspired to give as generously as you can today as we co-create the beloved community. Ways to give have been offered in the chat, if you like, and are on the slide presented for you. And now, if you'll say with me our words of congregational commitment, please remain mute though, I'll hear you in my mind. To the work of the church, which is weaving a tapestry of love we call community, we dedicate ourselves, and these are offerings.
We shall overcome.
As closing words this morning, we have a song poem entitled We Will Rise Up by Joanne Shenandoah, who is a member of the Wolf Clan of the Oneida Nation of the Haudenosaunee people of the Iroquois Confederacy. I am standing on the edge of wondering where to go. Love and hatred fill my being, torn in this world of woe. What happened to the love we knew and the way we cared back then? Prophecies are coming true, but this will not be the end. Oh no, this won't be the end. And in our darkest hour, we will not be afraid. When others lose their way, we will rise up. We will rise up. We will rise up and see the way.